And she probably felt fear. She probably felt some kind of concern. She probably uncertainty. She doubted herself. But guess what? She did it anyways. She made the leap and she found satisfaction. She found her greatness on the other side of that adversity. It's okay to feel the fear. It's okay to feel uncertain. But again, do it anyways and see what, because you never know what'll happen.
Namaste. Today's guest is an amazing gentleman that I met a while ago. His name is Audley Stephenson, and Audley is the host of the Audacious Living Podcast, with over 600 episodes dedicated to helping people live life audaciously through bold conversations, real stories, and purposeful living. He's also the author of an upcoming book, Living Your Best Audacious Life, set for release in spring of 2026. And actually, by the time you're watching this episode, because I did pre-record it, it's probably out already. So I'll make sure that I have the link in the show notes for you. So I hope that you are ready for an energizing conversation about purpose, courage, and what it really means to live boldly and, dare I say, design your life your way, because Audley and I we're both focused on doing that. And I'm going to bring him on to tell you sort of where his focus is in particular. So let me bring him up here right now. There you are. Welcome, Audley, to Design Your Life Your Way.
Oh, Gloria, this is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for dedicating the time to have this conversation. I just love these chats, and I'm always a big fan of them because, at the end of the day, here you and I will engage in conversation, and who knows what people will hear, what they'll take away from, and how they'll better their lives. And we may never ever know, right? That's in the world of podcasting, we never know. But the whole idea of being a part of someone's process in a small way is really exciting. It's really exciting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, I always come to these things, and I forgot to even mention this to you before we get started. It's like, I always come with like some questions, but if your answers leads me somewhere else, I'm going to go down that trail, because I don't have to be married to these things. There's like maybe one at the end I want to do, which I think I forgot to put on here anyway. So, whatever. It's all good.
Go with the flow.
It's all good. But, you and I met at Podfest. And when I found out what your podcast was about, it was like, oh my gosh, we're just kindred spirits. My focus, of course, is for women. And then your focus is on men. And I love the word audacious. And I wanted to actually tell our audience what it is, because I left out a little bit of your bio, because I want you to really talk about this. So Merriam-Webster defines audacious as intrepidly daring and recklessly bold, contemptuous of law, religion, or decorum, or marked by originality and verve. So I would love for you to tell our audience, what does living an audacious life really mean to you? What does it mean to be audacious?
I really believe, and it's funny. It's a word that I absolutely love. It's something that it's defined my life. Didn't really know it in the moment, but at the time when I started to really get awoken to what does audacity truly mean, I'm like, wait, I think I've been doing that, right? And so, to me, it's stepping out of your comfort zone, taking risks, doing things differently, going off the beaten path, if you will, right? All of these things encompass what it truly means to be an audacious life. And I think, but the most important thing in all of that is very much self-defined. Right. It's how I define audacity for myself could be very different from you or Tom or Sally or Jim. It's all different, but that doesn't diminish it in any way, shape, or form. And so, it's just going out and trying that thing that you've never ever done before, taking that leap, taking that chance. It's quietly guided my life. I didn't know it was there, but man, when I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to tell the whole world, how do I do this? And we podcast and we talk about, we write books and that kind of stuff, and we encourage individuals to embrace that way of living.
I love that. Now, was there a particular moment or experience that really kind of guided you on this path, of audacity and audaciousness?
I, yeah, no, no. So I'll try and condense the story as much as possible. But it's one of these things where, so I truly believe our life is a collection of experiences, Gloria, and they all kind of feed and shape to who we are in this present moment, and my life was no different. And so I'm gonna go back a few years because it was back in 2007. I've always been a big basketball guy, big basketball fan. Basketball has been a big part of my world, and I was also a big fan of broadcasting. I know you've got a career in broadcasting. I decided one day that I was going to work for a sports channel here in Toronto called The Score. I'm in Toronto, Canada, and it was an all sports channel. And I was like, man, I'm going to get on there, and they're going to love me, and I'm going to talk about basketball. I'm going to do it through this internship. It's going to be wonderful. And it was great. Certainly was a good experience. I sat in the archiving room, and this is VHS tapes, so we're running around slugging tapes and archiving and all that kind of the old school way. They don't do that no more, but that's how I started. And at the end of that sort of assignment, if you will, no one offered me a job. I didn't become an on-air reporter. I didn't become a broadcaster in any way, shape, or form. They were very appreciative of what I had done and said, thank you very much, all the best. I got kind of the nice handshake, and off I went. And I remember leaving going, oh, that's kind of anticlimactic. Oh, okay, oh well. And the most interesting thing that happened when I left there is while I was there, I met a gentleman by the name of Dave Mendonca. And Dave and I were he was an on-air reporter, and I was this guy that just was full of energy like basketball, and he was also a basketball guy, so we had this natural synergy. And so about a year after my time with The Score had ended, Dave and I reconnected on this thing called Facebook. So we're talking like '08 now. And we just started talking. He had left The Score and he was doing some other stuff. And we then got into this conversation about podcasting. I said, I've heard of this thing called podcasting. You want to check it out? And we literally started. So, you talk about audacity, you're trying something you never heard of, never done before, you just jump into it anyway. So we did this podcast and we centered it around NBA basketball. And at the time, again, in Toronto, Canada, the Raptors hadn't won a championship yet. Canada still very much is a hockey country, and you've got these two guys. I'm this big, tall, black guy, bald head, and you got this little short Portuguese guy, and we're fighting about basketball. We became the odd couple. I mean, we became this novelty, and we had lots and lots of online success, and we actually that led to us being the Toronto Raptors actually gave us media credentials. So now we're in the locker rooms talking to players and the Kobe Bryants of the world, and LeBron James, and all these superstars that we're interviewing, and we're like two giddy kids, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're here. And that kind of what started this journey, because again, up until that point, I didn't know what it meant to start a podcast. Oh, I didn't know you can get in the locker room. I had never interviewed an NBA player before. These are all things that were brand new. And that was going fine. And in 2011, this is when the NBA had a lockout, and so the basketball stops because now it's very different now. Like now, if there was no basketball because it stopped or lockout or whatever was going on, the social media, there's enough data out there and enough information. You can tell players color their shoelaces were because of social media. Well, back then it wasn't like that, and so it just so happened that year in 2011 there was a Canadian basketball league that got started called NBL Canada. And so I said, well, there's no NBA. Let me pivot to NBL. And I go to NBL. I'm like, hey, guys, I'm this experienced podcaster. I've been in NBA locker rooms. You want to have me? And they did. They bought it. They took it. I think they bought it. I mean, they accepted my proposal. I started working for them. And I'm going to fast forward a bit because there's a lot that happened. But I eventually went from being this podcaster that reported on the game to eventually becoming the commissioner of the league about 5 years later, about 6 years later. That's a huge,
I saw that.
There's so much that happened.
Crazy.
But it was something that I remember getting the call saying, hey, do you want to do this? Never had done it before, had no idea what exactly was involved. And I said, yeah, sure. Audaciously jumped into that. And it was in 20, so things were moving along nice. It was 2017 that this started. Things were going great. And then, and of course, in 2020, we all know what happened. The
Yeah.
pandemic hit, and that was kind of like a brick wall for me. And I remember taking it really hard because I was like, "What the heck
Yeah.
is this thing? What's going on?" And I had this sense of loss and this grief, and I really was in a state of depression because this thing that I loved, basketball, was no longer at my disposal. And I
Yeah.
just remember getting into a conversation with someone about, and I remember literally saying out loud, "It's when I lost basketball." I'm like, "Oh, that's it. That's
Mm.
it. That's why I feel the way I do." And so when you can pinpoint something, that opens up the doors. And I said, "Okay, great. I know what it is. How do I fix it?" And I
Right.
thought, well, what can I do? Hey, I've been podcasting for years. Why don't I jump back into podcasting?
Right.
Easy. I've done it before. It's not brand new me. Yeah. It's been 9 years later, but I did my first one. But yeah, let's do it again. So I jumped into podcasting, but I was very clear that I wanted to do something that was different. I didn't want to have another basketball podcast. I used to have a hip hop, old school hip hop channel. I did that as a podcast. I didn't want to do that. I used to have a leadership development podcast. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something that was different. And I literally did an analysis of my life. I stopped and said, I looked back and I did this analysis, and I could see in every milestone, in every victory, and every accomplishment, there was this thread, this red thread of audacity. And that was the connector. Every single thing I had done, whether it's start a brand new podcast, was approach a basketball league that knew nothing about me, or whether they're accepting a role as commissioner, it happened because I demonstrated this thing called audacity. I didn't have the language exactly quite just yet, but I could see it was there for me. And that's what started the process of going, okay, this is very audacious of me. This is, and it literally hit me one day. And it's funny because people oftentimes say, "Oh wow, great job marketing your name, Audley and Audacious."
Oh yeah, that's true.
It was not connected. It was a happy circumstance that took place. But what that tells me is that it was meant to be. And so,
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
and that's kind of, I mean, again, I gave you a really quick version, but that's kind of what led me where I am now, and why I am so committed and so focused on wanting to spread that, because I can see how, me being audacious, stepping into something, or any of us being audacious for that matter, stepping into something brand new, we never tried, we've learned it for the first time. It can make such a difference, not only to ourselves, but the people around us.
Yeah. And I love your story. And I do believe that there's no accidents in this world. It's like, you were given this name, and it just takes time for you to live into that. And you did, because you were being audacious all the way through your life, and in taking risks, and jumping into things. I know I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I was like, commissioner of basketball in
Yeah.
Canada. Holy moly, this guy's really done a lot of stuff in his life. But I can relate as well, because I've been doing, when I first started out in college, I was majoring in business, and
Yep.
then switched to broadcasting, and then so got a job. But then, of course, I got a job working for the Nightly Business Report. So it was like God source, whatever you call it, was always just saying business is still something you need to pay attention to.
Yes.
And so, and then I wound up starting my own business, and even the same thing with you is that I had a podcast
Mhm.
originally back in 2015, and then I did that for a while, and then stopped it. And then again, although I was actually planning before the pandemic hit, but my next iteration of it, Live, Love, Engage, I started in December 2019, and I was really glad that I did, because then I was able to have,
Yes.
doing all these wonderful interviews with people all through that time. So, yeah, see, I love, we're like I said, we're kindred spirits. I could tell right away, just in that first time we met, and we didn't even talk that long that day.
That's right.
You
That's
know?
right. That's exactly. The other interesting thing is when I stopped to, I found when I stopped, look back and start to sort of, okay, I've done this, and I start to see where that thread, and I'll even go a bit back further, because I'll even go back to my parents. My mom, who's 83, is like, you talk about a pillar for what audacious living is all about. In fact, not too long ago, she said to me at the age of 83, she said, "My best days are in front of me." And I was like, wow, right? That's how, and that's legitimately how
Yep.
she's always lived her life. And then I tell the story of my father, because it's an interesting thing. Yeah, so my parents split up when I was 6 months old. So I was raised without my father. Didn't have any image of him. Didn't know what he looked like. Nothing at all. I was in my early 20s. I had just become a father myself. My daughter was 6 months old, and that's when we met for the very first time. And it was essentially this. He had this calling to look for his son and find his long lost son and reconnect. In the moment, I really didn't think a lot about that, but as so much as time has passed, and then sorry, and I should also add, part of his story was the fact that he was quite ill and he knew his days were numbered, so that was the motivation for him to find my son, so to speak. And so he entered my life. We had a wonderful relationship for just over 4 years, and then he passed away. And that's sort of how that particular story ended. And I've thought about it many times throughout the years, having had that perspective, I even look at his actions, the idea of reaching out to a son who he's had no relationship with, had no idea how to receive him, had no idea how to respond to him, how to feel about him. That's pretty audacious. It truly is, because it's so easy to think that there's so much water under the bridge is passed. It doesn't make a difference. Why even bother? I'm not going to, make that attempt. And he could have done that, and no one would have said you're right. No one would have said no. I get you. I understand. But he's like, despite all that, I'm still going to reach out. And so it's that we talk about that thread of audacity. It exists. And so, and that's why you mentioned my book. I actually dedicate a chapter to both my parents, because I can very much see, now that I've had that perspective, I can very much see the roots of my audacity.
Oh, well, you come from good stock, clearly. So I like that. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. So, um, how do you go about helping other people move past fear and help them to, because really it is about being audacious is stepping out of your comfort zone and saying, okay, I'm going to do, I want to do something, and sometimes you want to do it, but you're still, fear tends to hold us back too often.
Yeah. I'm such a big fan of sharing stories. I think that if you want to make the biggest impact or the difference in people's lives, it's share your journey, share your stories, share what you have experienced, because it's really easy. It's so super easy. If I'm going through some stuff and it's difficult and it's hard, it's challenging, I'm not quite sure how to move through this. It's really easy in those moments to think nobody on the planet has any idea what you're facing, what you're going through, what that feels like. They just don't know. And so just imagine you're in that moment, you're in that space, and someone else comes along and says, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, I went through that too. That was last week though. And here's what I did. And look what I took out of it. And here's who helped me. And here's the resources I brought in. And now look where I'm at. Like that is so empowering. That's so encouraging. And because again, that feeling of isolation is real. And so I very much believe in sharing stories. I also like to I also think it's important to sort of challenge our beliefs, right? We have, our minds are, it's a beautiful thing things that goes on in our heads, but sometimes those things, and not everything that goes on in our heads are actually correct or based in truth. And it's really important to challenge those things. I'll give you a quick example. When I was a child growing up in my household, we went to church, right? That was a regular thing. Every Sunday, we went to church, and my mom was adamant that I have these, we call them my Sunday shoes, and I only wear them on Sundays, no other day of the week. And the reason why is because I was a rambunctious, energetic kid. I destroy them, right? And she wanted me to have something nice to wear to church, and so it was always, those are your Sunday shoes. So I only wore them on Sundays. No, as life goes on, I'm in my 40s, I realize I still have Sunday shoes. And I didn't understand why I did that, right? But when you look back, I know where it came from. And it's because as a child, I needed to. But as you move through life, the same thing, things have obviously changed. I'm not as crazy. I can take better care of them. I can clean, like, there's all sorts of things that I now do as an adult that will ensure I still have nice shoes when I'm going to church. Well, that was a belief I had to overcome, and I don't want when I sort of tell that story, I don't want to make it sound like I'm demonizing it or making it sound like it's bad or negative. The belief I had about Sunday shoes served me when I was a child.
Oh, sure.
But
Yeah.
as an adult, I no longer need Sunday shoes. There's no reason why I can't wear those shoes on Thursday, Friday, or Mondays. There's absolutely so it's very much challenging the things that you believe. It's very much really understanding, like, yes, it was this, but is it still
Mhm.
the same? And and
Yeah.
and one cool way of doing that, I think, is anything that anything I really hold firm in, or anything that produces a response where you go, I always do this in a situation, or I only ever do this, or I never do that.
Right.
When you
Yeah.
say those sorts of things, take a moment and just simply ask yourself why, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
In the world of coaching, you ask yourself why 5 times to get to the heart of the matter, right? Just ask,
Hmm. Yeah.
why do I do it, and why, and
Yeah.
why, and
That's
that
right.
will really help you understand. Well, is this rooted in truth, or is it something I need to let go of?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it it's interesting how sometimes we just these things become automatic and we don't even it's just the way we've always done it. Oh, what isn't it? There's like this funny story about someone about the way they made turkey
Yes,
or ham or something. It's like they always had to cut it off. And was like, well, yeah,
wings.
because her pan was too small. That's why we did it.
Yeah, to get a bigger pan, right? That's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
exactly. We don't have
But
to
it
do
wasn't until, and so that became like a family tradition, right? It
right.
carried on,
Yeah,
it carried on
exactly.
until someone said, "Hey, why do we
Wait.
do this?
Yeah.
Why do we do that?
Why are we doing this?
Let's
Yes.
get a bigger pot." Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool,
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah. It's just about being curious. And you know what? I'm gonna ask you this now. Usually I'll ask us about this at the end, but
Mhm.
but since we're talking about being curious right now, what are you curious about right now in your life?
It's so I have to say, curiosity is probably one of my favorite topics, and I've joked many times and said that if I didn't land on the Audacious Living Podcast, it'd be like the Curiosity Living Podcast, right?
Mm.
Because I think there are just so many wonderful benefits, positive offshoots that come from just maintaining a sense of curiosity. I just have a curiosity in people. I really do, and I think what's really nice about that is that when you maintain a sense of curiosity, you're not judgmental. You don't go into a situation having the answers because you're generally curious about, well, what is this about? And I think that opens up the door for just so much from a learning standpoint, an understanding standpoint, and just overall growth and development. And so, yeah, big fan of curiosity. I just generally I just have a sort of a curiosity about just life, and how people think and how people arrive at where they come to, and the points that and their journeys that got them where they are, because there's so much that we can learn from one another. I really do feel like the path that we're on is we're all on our own. Like life is like a path. We're on our own individual path, and what you're doing on yours is yours, and what I'm doing on mine is mine. But that doesn't mean that we can't see what other people are doing, and maybe there's something that you're doing that, hey, maybe I can incorporate that to what I do. Not trying to copy, right? Like, it's not trying to
Right.
emulate, but starting
Yeah.
to learn from. And somebody sort of use this analogy around. It's kind of, if you think of like clothes, right? Like, you can see someone in a really sharp suit and it looks really nice and well put together, but if that suit doesn't fit me,
Yeah.
right? Then it's no
That's
good,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So I had to look at, okay, so maybe I can get a suit like that, maybe a different color, definitely a bigger size, a bigger guy, and so right. So all of those things are consideration points. So yeah, I'm just curious about about life and all the things it has to offer, and what's really nice about that, because with that curiosity, there's a general excitement.
Mm.
There's
Yeah.
and man, the idea of going through life with this general excitement. Like I always say the quality of life vastly improves when you have something to look forward to on a daily basis, something that you're excited about, right? Think of that.
Mm.
Think of those childhood feelings and in the anticipation of Christmas.
Oh,
Imagine living
yeah.
like
Yeah.
that all the time, man. That's such a cool.
Absolutely. Well, which brings me to a question though, because um, yeah, we want to be excited about life, but sometimes, life throws us curveballs and, and lemons. So, how can you choose, or what would you say to someone who's like, maybe going through stuff right now? And it's like, how can you still encourage them to choose to be audacious and bold when they don't have, life isn't giving them what they
Yeah.
really want right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely, it's a wonderful question, and I think perspective is a really good thing because if you really think about life, and I oftentimes use an analogy of hills and valleys, right? On the top of the hill, we're celebrating, we're happy, there's satisfaction, joy, peace, all the wonderful things that come with living. And but as life goes, like it's a hill, but there's a dip, right? And we
Yeah.
sometimes you get into a valley, and the valley it's the icky stuff and the disappointments and the regrets and all the things that we don't enjoy are in that valley. And so I oftentimes talk about it's so important to find ways to get out of that valley and get there as quickly as you possibly can. And part of that way is being very clear on knowing the things that motivate you and drive you. It's possible. It's very, very possible to still have a sense of happiness even during difficult times. Right? There's something that you can raise your spirits. I remember once a friend of mine, he was going through a very bad marital breakup, and he was to him it was a devastating thing. He loved family, and that he was a risk of losing that. And he because he very much believed in family. So one day he and I got, and he loves his family. He's got a huge family, and so his extended family and cousins and aunts and all that kind of stuff. And he loves being around them. There's an energy that he has when he's in that space. And I remember once it was a barbecue that we were at, and I was taking a picture. It was a group shot with him and a bunch of his family members. And as I'm taking the photo, I'm looking at him, and he is just beaming like from ear to ear. And after the photo, I went over and I showed him. I said, "Look at that! Look how happy you are. This is supposed to be the most challenging and difficult point in your life, but you're still you have this joy." And so I'd say to people is very be very clear on recognizing, yes, I'm going through this, but also I still can experience moments of joy. I have something I call the bold framework. It's an acronym BOLD, and essentially it's helping individuals live their best audacious lives. The B in that framework stands for better than yesterday, and it's built on the concept of continuous growth, constant improving. Yes, you climbed that mountain yesterday, and I hope you're proud of yourself and you celebrated it, but there's a bigger one tomorrow. So can you do better than yesterday? I bring up this bold framework for the next letter, which is the letter O, and the O stands for outlast adversity, right? Nothing in our lives lasts forever. And if we really stop and think about it for a moment, when it comes to problem solving, when it comes to getting past difficult things, we're undefeated. And I say we're undefeated, and I know we're undefeated because we're still here. The problem hasn't wiped us off the planet. The problem hasn't, sure, there might have been some pain, there might have some change, there might have some pivoting, some adjustment, but we're undefeated because we got past the problem. And that's what outlasting adversity is all about. Very quickly, L, live your truth in the framework is about authenticity and being true to who you are. And the D is disrupting the norm. And I oftentimes use the analogy of the Wright brothers when they're trying to invent planes, and the people around them must have been laughing at them, going, "What are you doing? Flying for the birds, you're crazy." But they did it anyways, and now flying is an important part of our society. But to your question, outlasting adversity is, I think, where it's at. And then from that, you can walk away with some key lessons, key understandings, key learnings that will help you for future. And I think when we talk about being audacious, it's really about those pieces, like understanding that this is the challenge. And we hear it all the time. Yeah, what is this teaching me? And I get it. That's a hard question to answer in the moment of difficult stuff, right? I don't want to ask you what this lesson is teaching me. I don't care. I want to be in my pain, right? I want to be wherever I'm at in that negative space. But there is something that's to be gained from that. And time and perspective is our wonderful tools to help you identify those things.
I love it. And I love that you have an acronym because I do too. So mine is love, yours is bold. It's all perfect. It's
Yeah. So what's love? Tell me what love is. What's love?
so love is, and I love that yours too are not just like single words, because oftentimes people have single words. So mine aren't either. So mine is, the L is to let go and let God. So it's really about, letting go of like limiting beliefs and just
Yes.
kind of, and letting go of all expectations and just, putting your faith in your higher self, if nothing else.
Yes.
O is open your heart to receive. So being able to be open and to new ideas, to
Yes.
help even. The V is value your uniqueness, because
Yes.
we are all individuals and we all have wonderful value to give. And then the E is embrace your divinity and realizing that you are a special person. You are divine. You are created in God's image. And so embrace that and go out there and be bold.
Yeah.
See, love yourself, learn how to love yourself, and then go out and be bold.
There you go. There you go. And what I love about love, your love, is that there isn't an entry point. Like you can start wherever. You doesn't have to
Oh
start at
yeah,
L and work
absolutely.
through. You can be wherever you're at, where
Yeah,
you are in your journey. And again, it's so important because our journeys are individualized.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is so good. Um, I
Um,
knew, and I knew it was going to be. I knew because yeah, we're both out here helping people
yeah.
to live their lives,
Yes. Yes.
and to make it the best that they can be.
Yep.
And so, one question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Um, well, actually, yeah. I think I'm gonna do this. So, if if you were to redesign your life your way today, what, if anything, would you change?
Um, it's not a couple. I don't think I'd change anything because I needed every single experience to be where I'm at now. So, for example, um, it'd certainly be easy to say, hey, you know what? I wish I had a father growing up. I wish he was there and he taught me how to bike ride. I learned a bike ride in my 40s, and my father didn't teach me. I taught myself. So it's really easy to say, man, I wish I had done that sooner or earlier, and I wish I had done these things. But you know what? I think and I oftentimes say that I learned so much from my father's absence as well as presence. As his absence, it taught me the kind of father I wanted to be. I really recognized the importance of being present and involved and engaged. Well, I wouldn't have had that to the same degree or have that appreciation to the same degree had he been in my life the way,
Mm,
traditionally. That's an example. And then through his presence, he taught me, like I mentioned earlier, that it's never too
right.
late to come back, right? And so
Yeah.
I think the key. So I don't have any regrets. There isn't anything
Yeah.
in life that I haven't I wish didn't happen, or I wish was things happen the way they should have. And the way I know that is because I'm in such a wonderful place in my life, not from a monetary or positional or status. I'm not talking about that. The sense of peace I live with. I live with joy and peace about everything I've done. I've owned every step, every decision on my pathway.
Mm,
Perhaps people who were with me on this journey no longer and are with me and they're off doing, and I wish them all the best and wish them peace on their own travels. But I own every single one of it, and I don't think I'd have it any other way, if I'm being quite honest.
mm. Well, that's good. I appreciate that, and I think it's a healthy way to be. And I know I've definitely, I see people post on, social media, what would you tell your, or if you could go back and do it over
Yeah,
again, what would you do differently? And it's like, well, yeah, I suppose there's some things, but in hindsight, really, at the same time,
yeah,
it's made me who I am today. So I don't think I want to change
I
anything.
don't.
Yes, some of them were not pleasant to go through,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
you know,
But
but they taught
but
me
I
so.
but I but I think what they've done is also built my resiliency. They
Exactly.
made me a stronger person. So the next
Mhm.
time, because here's the truth of life, and if there's listeners out there that didn't know this, I want you to know now that we're all gonna have messy stuff happen to us. We're all gonna go through hard times. We're all gonna
Yep.
go through difficulties. That's the reality of life. And if I've shocked you by giving this news flash, I hope I haven't. But this is one of the truths of life. So now that we have that out of the way, we need to start equipping ourselves with things that help us deal with these messy, difficult, hard times. And quite frankly, you can read all the books about being more resilient, listen to podcasts, the blogs, you can do all of that. But unless you're really in the trenches, unless you're really going through, putting in those reps in and gaining those lessons and gaining better ways and gaining the insights, it's just not going to happen for you. And so, again, you're right. It's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. But I can guarantee you, once you go through that, when you see it again the next time, you're like, yeah, I've done this. Let's do it
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
Yeah. I remember once going on, it was a extended bike trip, and I remember
Mhm.
I was halfway through this cycling journey, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to ride to Niagara Falls. It's like, it's like 100 kilometers. We use kilometers in Canada, like 100 kilometers away. And I remember
Yeah.
halfway through, I was like, oh my gosh. And I saw this hill, and I'm like, I don't want to get up this hill. I'm like, wait a second. It was 25 hills you passed back behind you. What's one more? Tell me, tell
True.
yourself you're tired. Tell yourself you have
Mhm.
to slow down. Tell yourself that there's exhaustion. Those things are all fine, but don't tell
Yeah.
yourself you can't do it because you already proved that you can.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I was this was a mantra that I had actually when I was helping my sister when she was going through cancer, and I would be kind of tired, but it was just like, I have energy to spare. I have energy to
Oh,
spare.
I like
I have
that.
energy to spare.
I like that.
And it helped. It really did. It helped me to kind of get myself back going again because she needed me. And and yeah, you gotta keep going. And yeah, we could keep going all day on this. But
Yes.
um, if if we're getting ready to wrap this up, but if people take just one thing, especially in particular my audience for women over
Yeah.
50, if they take
Yes.
just one thing from your message today, what do you hope that is?
Can I cheat and say two things? Because I know it's hard to boil it down to just one thing. I hope that's okay. It's very audacious of me to change your question, but there's actually two things, and it very much ties into we heard that question. What would you tell your younger self? And that question I tell myself is that I'm absolutely enough. I had everything I needed all this time. It just needed to be watered, nurtured, and developed. And so, like each and every single one of us, we have it in us, and it's just a matter of unlocking, turning on the light switch, igniting the flame. Whichever analogy works best. It's a matter of doing that, but you had it all along. And then I also want people to understand the importance of our actions. And so funny. So my book, is you mentioned, my book is called "Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever," and the subtitle is how unleashing your inner greatness can change the world. We have the ability to have a huge impact on those around us just through our actions. And when you recognize that you have that power, there's a sense of responsibility that comes with it. As a kid, I still to this day, I'm a big Spider-Man fan. There's a line that Peter Parker was told by his Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility, and we have that. I think we have a responsibility to one another to be our bold, audacious selves, because when we do so, we actually give others that permission to do the same. And as a friend of mine told me a story once. Well, she was a long time account. She was an accountant, and studied, gone to school, and she was in the industry, and she was and spent a lot of time in the corporate accounting world. And one day we were talking, and we were just engaged in conversation, and she was talking about the fact that she didn't feel satisfaction in the role. It wasn't what she thought it was. She wasn't happy. She then proceeded to tell me about a story about a woman that she had heard of. She doesn't know the person. She'd heard of a woman who also was in a similar situation, worked in corporate accounting, didn't find satisfaction. So the woman had made a pivot and decided she'd leave the corporate world and focus on small businesses and not for profit. And she's absolutely loving what doing. She's finding satisfaction. She loves helping people. Really feels like she's using her gifts and her abilities where they're meant to be. So I stopped my friend from. I said, "Wait, I just want you to pause for a second here, okay? That person who you don't know, who you've never met, has inspired you, right? Because
Right.
now you're excited telling their story, right?
Yeah.
But just imagine for a moment, and I don't know this woman either, but my guess is when she was about to make that decision, she was uncertain. There's probably a little
Mhm.
bit of fear, because again, you're leaving your career behind, right?
Yeah,
But all that,
absolutely.
and she probably felt fear. She probably felt some kind of concern. She probably uncertainty. She doubted herself. But guess what? She did it anyways. She made the leap, and she found satisfaction. She found her greatness on the other side of that adversity. And it's so powerful. It's inspired you, and you're telling me, and I'm telling Gloria's audience on her podcast, right? So
Right.
actions have a way of impacting others, that ripple effect, right? It
Yeah.
actually have a way of inspiring other people. We just have to know, first and foremost, it's okay to feel the fear. It's okay to feel uncertain. But again, do it anyways and see what,
Yeah.
because you never know what'll happen. And so
That's right.
that's why I can say I don't live with regret, because I've tried everything. I thought, well, hey, let me try this and see what happens. I've tried it. And so that's what I want to encourage people to remember, that you have the ability in you. It's there. It's a matter of tapping into it. And once you do, remember that, and that's why I like sharing your stories, because you share your stories, you can inspire the people, but it can have an impact on others. And really what it does is like, hey, I've been really thinking about podcasting, and I'm not quite sure if I want to do it. But Gloria shared her experience when she first got going, and that guy Audley, he told some funny story about how messed up his mic was, and he didn't know where to look. The camera was all butchered, and like he told some, but he's still doing it anyways. 17 years later. Wow, maybe I can too. That's the power of being audacious. That's the difference in making others, and that's what I would tell others to do the same.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Awesome. Awesome. All right. People want to know more about you. Where's the best place for them to do that?
BestAudaciousLife.com is my website. My podcast, the Audacious Living Podcast, it's 600 plus episodes ongoing. I told my son, I remember 2 years ago, I started on this track, and I said to him, how long do you think it'll take me to get to 1,000 episodes? And we started calculating sometime in 2027. And so the mission is to continue to go in and continue to spread Audacity. And this is far greater than just meeting a number. It's recognizing that, you have, again, that sense of responsibility, like Peter Parker, right? To help others, inspire others, and get everyone to jump on that train of audaciousness, because there's good things down the road.
Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your audaciousness and your wonderful stories with our audience today. I know they got a lot of benefit out of it, and I'm very glad that we met. And I think I'm going to get a chance to maybe be on your show at some point too. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
You are. Okay, can't wait. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. So thank you again for joining us, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gloria. This is great.
Thank you. And I do want to thank all of you for tuning in and watching us today. And I also want to make sure that you realize we are on newrealitytv.com now. And so I encourage you, that if you're listening to this podcast on Apple, but you want to actually see, and I encourage you to do that, because you want to be able to see what Audley looks like in person. He's an amazing person, very enthusiastic, and got a big bright smile, and he's a great guy. So thank you for listening today. Thank you for watching, and make sure that you go out and make today a great day, and I'll see you again next week.